What was the structure of an ancient Israelite house? Let's find out today because it's going to become relevant for the verse in Mark that we're going to tackle today. Mark 2 2. And if you like the content, of course, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Let's start. All right, Mark 2 2. Kai sunexesan pulloi, hoste meketi chorein, mede da prostethuran, kai laile autois ton logon. What is the subject of this sentence? It's right here, poloi. This is the subject. And the verb, it's right here, sunexesan. Okay. So this is the principal sentence introduced by the usual kai and. And then you have a consecutive clause introduced by this preposition. So this is a consecutive clause. Okay. This starts here and ends at a comma right here. Okay. And you have an infinitive construct. You see here the verb ending in ein. It's an infinitive. Okay. And the subject is a little tricky here. We're gonna see it. Is this ta, which technically is a definite article, connected with this prepositional phrase pros ten thuran, which gives the where this place is. And then you have these other two adverbs, meketi and mede. Those are negative adverbs. And then you have the last part of the sentence, introduced again by a kai conjunction, where the subject changes from this poloi to Jesus. Okay, it's understood that obviously it's Jesus, the subject, and the principal verb is this elale that connects with the object, direct object here, ton logan. This is the direct object, and then you have this autois, which tells us to whom Jesus is actually speaking, to whom. All right. So now that we have the general structure, grammatical structure of the sentence, we can dive in and understand the legal terms. All right. So let's start from the subject, which is this polloi. This is a masculine plural. It's actually an adjective. It means many. Okay. It means many. And the verb is sunexesan. Now, this is an irregular verb that comes from the combination of the preposition sun, you see here, and then exesan comes from the verb ago. Okay, so the verb is actually sunago. Okay, sun means with, together, and ago means lead. Okay, and so when you lead together, when you put together, you gather something. Okay, so the idea of this verb is to gather. Okay, this particular sun exesan, it's an aorist tense in the passive form. So literally, what Mark is saying here is that many were gathered. Okay, many were gathered. Remember, all these people are getting there because Jesus is home, came back home. So a lot of people start gathering close to his home, to the home where he was staying, which probably was Peter's house. Okay, so the first three words of the verse say kai and poloi, many sunexison, were gathered. And then there is this consecutive clause that is introduced by this hoste, which you've seen it before. It means so that, to the point that, so much so. And it holds an infinitive construct. You see here, chorein. This ein ending tells us that this is an infinitive. Infinitive, okay, of the verb choreo. Now, um, the verb choreo means to have space, to have a room. Okay, so it's used for spaces, for squares, rooms, places that have some room, that have some space. Okay. In fact, the term hora, okay, means land or territory. Okay, so the verb horeo means to have some space. All right, so we need to put it in context. Okay, where does this verb come from and what does it refer to? Well, it refers to this ta pros ten thuran. This is in a sense the subject of the infinitive construct. Who or what had space? Well, ta is a definite article in the neuter plural. Okay. Now, it's not connected with anything. It's like a sort of but it's not connected with anything. The what? Okay. There's something missing and there's something understood, not in the text, right? And what is understood is told to us by this prepositional phrase, pros ten thura. So first, let's try to understand what this pros ten thura means, and then we're going to see what this ta is referring to. Now, the preposition pros, we've seen it many times, indicates usually a movement toward, okay, towards something. So if there's a place, this is the movement toward that certain place. Okay, so we can generally translate it as to, toward, close to, and so on. Now, pros wants the accusative case, and in fact, we see it here. We have this feminine singular accusative. There is the definite article ten, which agrees with the name thuran, feminine singular, accusative ending alpha nu. So ten thuran is the door. We've seen this before when Mark was describing the door of the house of Simon Peter, where again people were going to hope to get healed by Jesus. Okay, so probably Mark is referring to that same door of St. Peter's house. So this means and we're going to understand what is missing here, toward the door or close to the door. So what's missing here is basically the areas. Okay, this is a plural. So what Mark is saying is that the areas close to the door that lead to the door of the house of St. Peter, Horein, had space, mede, meketi. Now, mede means basically they're both negative. Okay, so these are negative. You see this me, this is a negation, this is a negative particle. So these are both negative adverbs. Okay, negative adverb, adverb. Okay, that correspond meketi to not anymore and mede not even. Okay, so what we could translate this passage with is something like, many were gathering so that there was not even space anymore around the door or close to the door. So the image that Mark is giving here, the image that Mark is depicting here, is that the house of St. Peter was already full, but also the area that leads to the door, to the entrance of the house, also had no space anymore. It was completely full. It was overflowing of people. Okay, so that there was no space anymore around the door, we could say, in the areas around the door. And the second part of the sentence moves from the aorist here to the imperfect tense of this elale. Well, the verb laleo is a verb that is used to indicate the idea of speaking, talking. Okay, to speak, to talk. Okay, and in fact, the repetition of the lambda is a sort of onomatopoeic verb. When we talk, is sort of la 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 la, right? We say it even in English. So laleo indicates this idea of talking. Okay, so it just means he was talking. Who? Jesus, of course, right? And Jesus, was talking, because it's the imperfect tense, was talking, autois. So autois is a personal pronoun in the masculine plural, okay? In the dative case. The dative case is given by this omicron iota sigma ending ois, tells us that this is a plural dative case. He was talking to them. Okay, he was talking to them. He was speaking to them. What was he saying? He was speaking ton logon. This is the direct object. So the ton logon is the direct object from the verb. So he was speaking what? Ton, the logon, the word. This is a very important term. So he was speaking the word. What does that mean? Well, probably he was preaching the gospel. Okay, the word. It's an important word I'm saying because logos is the first one of the first words that appear in the Gospel of John. It's a super famous incipit of the Gospel of John. In the beginning, the word. Okay, logos. Okay, here is in the accusative case, masculine singular, and so you have this ending as on. Okay, the word. The word is also the word in the sense of the second person of the Trinity, right? So this is a double meaning, right? He was talking to them, the word, because Jesus is the word with a capital W. Okay, so if you can put together the verse, we could translate it as follows: and many were gathering, so that there was not even space anymore close to the door, around the door, and he was preaching them the word. Now, why is this verse interesting in terms of our understanding of how the ancient Jewish houses were built? Well, let's take a look here. This is an example, a very simple example of a very simple house, probably very similar to the house of Simon Peter. Remember, Peter was just a fisherman, so probably not too wealthy. Okay, this was the general structure of the simplest house you could find there on the Lake of Galilee. Okay, it's interesting to notice the structure because it's not immediately similar to how we may imagine a house. The main idea of a Jewish house was to have this um, courtyard here at the beginning, also called vestibule, that would be used as a sort of entrance to the actual house. So there was basically the entrance that was here, but that would not take you immediately into the room. There was a sort of vestibule that would take you to the main door of the house, where the family would live all together. And usually it was just a one big room where all the families were gathered and would eat and sleep, right? And then maybe they were having a lower level where they would have the stable with all the animals. The other thing to remember here is that there would usually be some sort of access to the roof of the house. So in this particular picture, there is this staircase that goes above, okay? But somehow there was a way to get on top of the roof. This is very important. Let's keep it in mind because it's going to become very important for the next videos, for the next verses in Mark. What we want to go over today is basically try to connect this verse, Mark 2:2, that we just read, with this structure of ancient Jewish house. Well, what is Mark trying to say? Well, what Mark is trying to say is that there were a lot of people that were entering, okay, the door, and there was no space anymore, nor in the house where Jesus was preaching, nor in the vestibule. So this was all full. And Mark is saying that there was not even space in those areas, ta, prost, and thuran, those areas that would lead to the entrance. So there were people even here outside of the house trying to enter into the vestibule. So you can imagine how many people there are, probably hundreds of people. Okay. So this is very interesting. Let's keep this in mind because this is going to turn very useful for us in the exploration of the next verses.